Yes, guys. Welcome back to Nuclear Reaction Faction. Today we're going to be looking at the disturbing history of Daniel Larson, which is a full documentary by Turkey Tom. Go check him out. I'll link him in the description. Right, let's get popping. This is part one.
It's been 1 year since we last checked on Daniel Larson. He couldn't have gotten in much more trouble, could he?
You are gonna do. I am now declaring war. You'll be blown up soon.
Whoa.
And yes, I will bomb the White House.
Whoa.
Get out. I'm not gonna do it because I have my phone. Get the f*** out of my car! Find me!
Get this crackhead.
Oh my word. That's a proper moment.
Mr. Larson, would you like to say anything before I sentence you?
Oh dear.
Just in case you're fortunate enough to have never heard of this guy, Daniel Larson is an
I'm not that fortunate, to be honest. I know too much about this guy.
Mr. Larson, would you like to say anything before I sentence you?
Just in case you're fortunate enough to have never heard of this guy, Daniel Larson is an autistic and bipolar man who spent the better part of the last decade obsessing over child actresses and singers to the point of stalking and harassment, systematically abusing every person who tried to shelter him, and being repeatedly tricked into exposing himself online by people pretending to represent record labels. Oh, and he's also sent inappropriate messages to multiple people. I say inappropriate instead of being specific so this video doesn't get black holed, but it's about as bad as you can imagine for the LCP allegations. In the last episode of Daniel's Horror Cow Odyssey, in late 2022, he terrorizes, gaslights, and assaults his lifelong mentor and greatest benefactor, Bob Proctor, who then calls the police on him. After coming to the realization that the hard edges of criminal law might not be the most appropriate structure to deal with Daniel's erratic behaviors, Bob displays saint-like patience by giving Daniel one last saving grace, a ticket to California, where 5150 laws meant that Daniel might finally be institutionalized for his condition and behavior. Unfortunately, Bob wasn't counting on Daniel's ability to undo the efforts of others to help him. So the very next time there's a sighting of Larson in the wild, he's at a strip club. I can't imagine he's having much fun there, considering the dancers aren't 14-year-old Disney actresses. But this lack of regard for Bob and his wishes were so grievous that even OX, one of the few people going out of their way to manage and keep tabs on Daniel, gave up on him for the time, deciding he was unworthy of help and simply shouldn't have any kind of access to social media. Considering the benevolence of a few people managing his online presence was the only thing keeping the followers of the story up to date on his whereabouts. After the management gave up on him, his future grew increasingly uncertain. All we know is that Daniel was roaming the streets of California and had developed a condition called trench foot, which I thought was an esoteric disease from World War I, but apparently many homeless people end up getting it from walking around in soggy shoes for way too long. Either way, his living situation was not good, and it wasn't about to improve. Almost 2 years prior, a man named Joshua Block, known online as World of T-Shirts, who I covered in a previous video, announced he was very fond of Daniel's art and decided to work with him.
I'm signing with Daniel Larson Records. We're partnering up to make a new song. Stay tuned for further updates.
For context,
What does he sound? He sounds like a robot or something like that. Like he sounds like, or an alien trying to imitate human speech.
Josh is in a similar position, only a lot better since he lacks the trademark belligerence that got Daniel into the position he's in. Around 2020, Josh became quite famous on TikTok for his likable, if a little strange, personality. And to this day, he regularly pulls in hundreds of thousands of views in videos of him doing mundane things. Daniel was initially very psyched about this cosign, even shouting Joshua out in his own unique way.
This message is to World of T-shirts in New York.
Wow.
Since Josh had a significantly larger online presence, it meant Daniel was on the brink of fulfilling his fantasies of being famous. However, just a little while later, Josh recanted his offer to do business with Daniel after finding out about his extensive history with minors.
So I canceled the record deal with Daniel Larson Records. I didn't sign anything I was gonna sign, but then I found out about his past, and I had to cancel on him.
Is it just me, or did he sound proper New York when he said past then?
If you encounter him, or he tries to offer you a record deal or anything, avoid him at all costs. We gotta cancel him.
This deeply angered Daniel, who went on...
Oh man, working with Daniel would be like a nightmare anyway. But like, yeah, no, I don't know how he didn't know about his past. Like, Daniel Larson's like a notorious creep, man.
To sporadically rant and rave about Josh over the course of the next year and a half. Mostly, the beef between them was dormant and one-sided, as Joshua's only mention of it for a while was in one video on a secondary account in which he says he's not associated with or endorsed by Daniel. This changed.
Problem is Daniel Larson grips onto something and he doesn't let it go. Like, I've got bipolar too, yeah. And if like you're if you think someone's an adversary, you can get quite you can take it very personal. Like, I'll put it that way. Like, I've sent like people dozens of messages telling them that I don't like them, basically, and telling them exactly why.
For 2022, when Josh posted a video to his main account challenging Daniel to a boxing match in Times Square while displaying some unusually zesty shadow boxing. The video quickly got a lot of traction and now sits at over 1 million views and over 100,000 likes. This set Dan on edge again, and he began
knock out a
threats
baby
against
with
him.
those punches.
Joshua World of T-shirts.
Oh, you know Daniel would win in a fight, like 100%. I guarantee you, Daniel would win the fight, like, and it'll be like a finished quickly sort of thing. Like, I'm not saying Daniel can like punch really hard, but he's not gonna need to, is he?
Still waiting for the boxing match. We'll have that in 2023.
Additionally, he promised to make Josh.
See, look, he was proper on it. You could tell, yeah, he was down for the swing, that he was serious. You can tell by the way he looks up afterwards. Watch, you can just tell, yeah. I know when someone is ready to have it out.
Displaying some unusually zesty shadow boxing. The video quickly got a lot of traction and now sits at over 1 million views and over 100,000 likes. This set Dan on edge again, and he began making threats against him.
To Joshua World of T-shirts, I still am waiting for the boxing match. We'll have that in 2023.
Additionally, he promised to make Joshua bankrupt while singing Empire State of Mind again.
What dreams are made of.
Oh, you cringe guy.
I can't do. I will make.
Like, you think it can't get more cringe than the guy who originally does it. At least it's endearing, like when the original guy sings it. Like, Daniel trying to copy it is just like, it's, I don't know, it's some new form of low.
Joshua Block go bankrupt. Yes, he will go bankrupt.
Oh, it's a rendition.
While the reasons for their conflict might seem obvious at first glance, they're a bit more complicated than they may appear. There were trolls instigating it by convincing Daniel that Josh was saying things about him, but perhaps more importantly, there was a specific person working behind the scenes to pit them against each other. Michael Quinn, the manager of Joshua Block. While his original TikTok account has been terminated and the archives of his content are mostly dated after the original interactions between Josh and Daniel, we know that Michael Quinn is hated by Josh's community and seen as the de facto main antagonist, blatantly manipulating and directly feeding Joshua things to say, often pushing him to aggressively engage with random people online in order to get more attention to the content.
I'm the only one that takes care of Josh. No one else does. The only one that cares for Josh is me, Michael Quinn. No one else.
Whoa.
No one else. Tell him. No one else. Michael Quinn.
That's really possessive right there. Flipping hell. And you know that kid could easily be coerced into stuff, yeah? And like, this guy's come along and saying, wow, he's a cash cow. I'm going to be this guy's manager and control him. And like, oh, mate, like this guy's probably a moron. I reckon whatever that lad's name is, he's probably smarter than this other guy. It's just this other guy's like cruel. Like, I don't like it already.
Is my mentor.
Whenever he's seen, he's bragging about being a multi-millionaire and the only person who cares for Josh, both of which are highly dubious claims at best. His claims of being wealthy do hold some weight though, considering he's the founder and owner of Feltman's Hot Dogs, which at least used to be a pretty successful company considering he got a segment during an NBC regional news show. However, not only is there another person who also owns Feltman's, meaning they probably split the revenue, but it's also very unlikely the company is making that much considering how competitive the fast food market is in New York. It's worth noting that when Michael says he's a multi-millionaire, he doesn't mean 2 or 3, but specifically $200 million, which is pretty crazy. And if he is that wealthy, why is he spending time with Joshua Block?
That's what I'm saying.
While it's unsure how much money he's actually made, it's very hard to imagine there's any motive behind his involvement with Josh besides it being a profitable grift. I wasn't able to find properly archived versions of these particular videos, but according to the Know Your Meme article that documented this particular spat, the same day Josh challenged Daniel to a boxing match, Quinn posted on his TikTok account addressing Daniel directly directly and threatening him. After this interaction, Michael went on to make a plethora of other videos and TikToks provoking him, which heavily suggested that Joshua's attacks on Daniel were his idea in the first place. This may seem gratuitous at first, until you find out what happened next. Unlike a lot of instances of Daniel making threats of violence online and in real life, and no one doing anything about it, on January 1st, 2023, he was actually served with court papers. Joshua was suing Daniel for $550,000 for harassment and threats of violence, which are deemed credible threats due to Daniel's extensive criminal record and history of violence. Although I should say I kind of misspoke when I said Daniel was served with court papers, because he had no address to get the letter of intent, and thus it took him a couple of days to even find out he was being sued. In all likelihood, once Michael figured out that the boxing match had no chance of happening, he settled for the next best way to capitalize on this back and forth, which was to sue Daniel, knowing he had a rap sheet, no real recourse, and would ultimately end up relying on the legal aid of a public defender. That is, if he even agreed to one and didn't try to be his own lawyer, which is something Daniel eventually did, but we'll get to that later. It's entirely possible that this was the plan to begin with. Michael, knowing Daniel was incapable of holding his tongue or controlling his violent urges, baited him with the unwitting help of trolls into saying something he could start a lawsuit over. Daniel pays it no mind though, which is understandable given his circumstances demanded a lot more immediate attention than the self-evidently absurd notion of paying over $500,000 to Josh. On the 4th of January, he autographed a picture of himself for a fan of his named Mark.
His signature, I asked him to sign it to Mark, and technically he did that. I ain't even mad.
During the same day as he was live streaming, he made the mistake of showing the restaurant he was entering before closing the stream. The ever-vigilant trolls figured out what the restaurant was and called it up, claiming that Daniel was going to go there nude. The employees actually gave this call some credence, since just by looking at now homeless Daniel Larson, you can see he might be the kind of person that's deranged enough to do such a thing. They decide to play it safe and ask Daniel to leave the restaurant to prevent anything like that from happening. As an employee is trying to persuade him to leave the premises, he begins live streaming again, threatening to call the police and accusing them of defamation. He was probably not going to go nude, but it's a virtual certainty he was planning on dining and dashing from the establishment, so ultimately, it's probably a good thing that the police were contacted. Unexplainably, right before conceding and leaving the restaurant, Daniel turns around and says this.
Just to let you guys know, I'm a lawyer.
No, you're
But not everything is bad news. On the same day, he hits the milestone of 7,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. He about to make it out the hood with this one. He about to buy a Bugatti. Over the course of the next few days, Daniel begins revealing the consequences of Ox's departure, saying that his TikTok and YouTube accounts are either inaccessible or terminated. It's no biggie though, 'cause he just makes new accounts and continues his constant frantically posting every moment of his life. On the 6th of January, he gets a trespass notice from a security guard in another restaurant, which according to the trolls following his activities was Gladstone's at Malibu, miles above Daniel's pay grade, by the way. He for sure was going to dine and dash this one. After this incident, there's a 10-day long period of peace during which nothing of relevance takes place, with perhaps the exception of him taking part in a Discord voice chat in which he gives his opinion on the age of consent.
Do you think that the age of consent can be 15 with family permission?
Yes.
Oh my word.
But you know how it is with Daniel. On the 16th, we get screenshots of his conversation with a troll pretending to be Grace. You know, after a while, Chris Chan figured out he couldn't trust anyone online because of how many trolls there were. But Daniel never quite took the hint. In these screenshots, Dan says, Grace, I need to be honest and tell you something. I want to be serious about this, and I need to explain. I need help, and I don't know what to do. I'm being honest. I was abused at a young age. The troll in question didn't empathize with his appeal to childhood trauma, as the context of the conversation was his altercation with Bob, in which Daniel hit him and then hit himself to pretend Bob was attacking him. Over the next few days, the trolls bring up Danderson's attempt at sexting the singer Darcy Lynn when she was underage. He first tries to defend himself from the accusations of beating Bob, trying to say that they both messed up and that he takes accountability, though it's unlikely he even understands what that word means. The cherry on top of this particular exchange is when Daniel says, the trolls tried to make me sexually attracted to you as a child. The Grace troll is attentive enough to point out that Daniel keeps referring to the evidence of him being a creep as mere accusations, but it doesn't faze Daniel, who just continues his rambling.
No, he's a full-on creep, man. People found his, is it Pinterest or something like that? Like, oh my word, he's been on to this Grace Vanderwall or whatever her name is since she was like, I don't know, like she was like 8, wasn't she? Like this guy's a full-on creep, bro. How can he even like deny it? Like, it's all over the internet, like everyone knows.
Saying, it hurts my soul and heart. I would admit that I am a pedophile to fix everything and get us heard, but it might risk everything I care about. I want you, Grace. I can't lose that. The impersonator ran all of my social media accounts, so if I didn't listen to them, they would put my entire career at risk. Given his trench foot situation, I'm sure his soul is in a lot of pain. That response, however, is par for the course Larsonian schizobabble, but the troll picked up on his offering to confess to his crimes in exchange for being in a relationship with Grace and asking to put his money where his mouth was, and so he did. I need to come clean. I need to tell the fans. Grace, I admit, I am a PDF file. If this wasn't sufficient, he followed these messages to who he thought was Grace with a special dedicated video.
Yeah, because what he does is what the trolls do is they always keep pretending that they're this lass that he's obsessed with, and he falls for it every single time. I mean, like, usually, yeah, like in the case with Christian, I felt really bad for him, at least at the start before he gets to the really debaucherous stuff, yeah. I felt like really bad for him, but like I feel really bad for Daniel in a lot of ways, but then like like in terms of people trolling and bullying him, but he kind of deserves it because I mean he's like a proper creep, and he's like the way he treats people, like he's belligerent, like, so I don't actually feel that bad for him really, but like with Christian I felt a bit more sympathetic.
I need to come clean. I need to tell the fans. Grace, I admit, I am a PDF file. If this wasn't sufficient, he followed these messages to who he thought was Grace with a special dedicated video.
Thought it's time for me to come clean. I admit that I am a pedophile. I admit that. Yes,
did he just put a picture? Tom, did you just put a picture of EDP?
He thought was Grace with a special dedicated video.
Thought it's time for me to come clean. I admit,
Tom,
that I am a pedophile. I admit that yes, I hit Bob. The reason being, growing up, I didn't have anybody that really cared for me. I didn't have anybody that supported me. And I got badly trolled.
Yeah.
And it turned me into what I turned out to be. And I'm trying to change. I need help.
In his eyes, he hit Bob because no one cared about him in his childhood, and he became a P-word because he was badly trolled. This is a good time to remind you that his Pinterest boards full of pictures of little girls were created long before any troll knew of Daniel's existence. On the same day, he supposedly uploaded a fake movie trailer to his channel, as he was under the impression he'd been speaking to Netflix executives on Discord, but of course, they were just trolls. I guess this false hope of working with Netflix being crushed really got to him, as on the morning of the 17th, his TikTok account was flooded with videos of him crying over the course of roughly 2 hours. Calling what he's doing in these videos crying is pretty generous, considering he's less crying and more making crying faces and borderline yawning for most of them. It's very interesting to see Daniel doing his best to put on the melancholy act with the sad songs playing in the background and all of that. There are two unexplainable videos among these, one in which he brags about being famous, followed immediately by him in the darkness listening to...
No, he's infamous. There's a difference, my brother. Like, I'm not talking to Tom, I'm talking to Daniel. Daniel, mate, there's a difference. You're infamous, my bro.
For most of them. It's very interesting to see Daniel doing his best to put on the melancholy act with the sad songs playing in the background and all of that. There are two unexplainable videos among these, one in which he brags about being famous, followed immediately by him in the darkness listening to Corpse Husband, of all things. Immediately after posting them, he gets on a live stream and starts begging for donos, which makes it quite clear what the point of the video was. In the archived bits of this stream, he sulks about being $90 in debt after an overdraft fee, while you can literally hear him standing in line at Disneyland. Once he gets inside, the sad act completely vanishes, and I guess the excitement gets the best of him as he starts explicitly saying he wants money to get on the Tom Sawyer ride. Apparently, 2 Larson followers were responsible for getting him into Disneyland and are heard accompanying him during the stream while he's talking about investing $1 into Disney stock and holding it for a year before he sells his share. I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure a share of Disney costs more than $1. His visit to Disneyland goes by without any incident, and thank God for that. But just a day later, we're going to the usually scheduled programming, as Daniel has officially contracted scabies. In 3 posts to his YouTube community, he says, "I'm going to the hospital. I got an STI somehow. My rash has gotten bigger." On the same day, he posts a video explaining what the doctors diagnosed him with, and in case you don't know what scabies is, I guess I should put a trigger warning here because I bet some people are phobic of this one. Basically, it's a condition that happens when you have bugs literally burrowed into your skin, causing itchy rashes all over your body. A day later, he goes to the Cheesecake Factory and posts a nice selfie with the meal he's about to consume. Of course, like with pretty much all of his meals, he didn't have any money, so as soon as the check came, he began begging on his TikTok for someone to pay for it.
Alright, so I'm going to need about $80 before
He's
midnight.
so
To
self-entitled.
be able to get the dinner paid for, and then for me to get to the train back to downtown Los Angeles. Alright, this is an emergency. The trolls have found my location, and they're calling the restaurant.
It's like that old TV series 24. Like he's like constantly on edge. It's like his life is like a constant like action movie.
Won't let me leave now.
This time, I think nobody called the restaurant. Daniel just got in trouble for not paying and was trying to evade blame. Soon after, he begins hounding his followers to get him $100 within 2 minutes, or he'll be getting charges pressed against him, saying the police have already arrived. He makes more posts to his community page showing the QR code for his bill, expecting someone will pay it for him. But after failing to pay, he finally gets arrested for dining and dashing after having done so multiple times with no consequences. For a second, it looked as if the Larsonian plot armor was losing its power. However, he gets released immediately after it, probably when the cops realize the extent of Daniel's issues. Even after being arrested, Daniel refuses to play it safe, as the very next day he drops these bangers.
Sandy Hook was false, and Alex Jones was a good man. Sandy Hook is a hoax, and the kids are in hell.
Concurrently, he relays to his audience that he's been banned from yet another restaurant, this time before he even got to order and eat anything. This is most likely due to all the restaurants in the area getting tipped by police that Daniel is a serial dine and dasher who should be turned away upon arrival. But Daniel tries to paint himself as the victim, complaining that they didn't believe him that he couldn't charge his phone anymore. Strangely enough, in every other video he posted about this, it seems he accidentally used a TikTok audio from a girl talking about reading comments and gave himself long eyelashes with a filter. It's good on him, to be honest. I think it's a very suitable look. In the videos he made after his arrest, he doesn't mention dining and dashing at all, saying instead that the restaurant got slammed and that 2 of his fans are responsible for causing issues. He also reveals the meal did eventually get paid for by another one of his fans, who happened to be a lawyer, according to him. Regardless, the charge he got, defrauding an innkeeper, would cost him $950 in fines. Ouch. He alleges that the innkeeper was a hater and was mad that the restaurant was getting too many calls. It's very funny how good Daniel is at emulating how celebrities speak, yet he's completely unable to even acknowledge the fact that the primary reason he got in trouble was for not paying for his food, not because the innkeeper was a hater. Daniel also got upset that the people at the restaurant and the cops were going through his social media, saying it was unprofessional of them. In his community posts, which are hard to come by since the YouTube account they were on is now gone, he reveals he's been kicked out of a Target and explains he's trying to get in contact with the company responsible for his housing, saying he'll soon be moving into a new place. The rest of January is void of any significant happenings. The calm before the storm, if you will, or considering that we're talking about Daniel, the roaring thunder. February begins with him confessing that the Pinterest the trolls found that had hundreds of pictures of little kids in folders was indeed his. However, as much as it's a confession, it's not quite an admission of guilt, as you can see.
Yes, the Pinterest was mine, and yes, I actually followed all of those pictures and stuff of, like...
Just say it.
I did that at the time because I needed to get everything heard with the abuse that was going on.
Oh, you slimy
system. Like, I was actually being, like, hit by the providers, and I did need to make that
slime, man.
I knew it wasn't going to go viral. I knew I couldn't get help, so I had to do something to be able to save myself. And I didn't know
what the hell is he going on about?
I made the Pinterest.
So he made a Pinterest account with that stuff in it and advertised it to absolutely no one so that he could get attention to his supposedly being abused at whatever care center he was at the time. Sounds believable. A general rule for Daniel Larson's online activity is that whenever he starts preemptively making defensive statements about something he's been accused of, most likely it's because he knows he's about to get exposed for it. Case in point, within 24 hours, he made a post to his YouTube community claiming that he'd found another Grace Vanderwall impersonator, showing his conversation with this troll on Discord. However, he only shows the last few messages. Soon after this, the rest of his exchanges get revealed to the public, and it's the stuff of nightmares. The prints begin with Daniel saying Grace looks like she could milk.
No. I have to stop there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I can't. There's only so much I can handle in one sitting. This guy is like repulsive. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to bully or harass him or anything, but he's just repulsive, man. Like I can only take so much of Turkey Tom's videos at a time because they're intense. They're really good, but you know, like the subject matters he deals with are dark and they're kind of depressing. But like it's very interesting either way. But yeah. Anyway, you've been locked into Nuclear Reaction Faction. Subscribe for more, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.